welcome to part 4 of 31 Days of Halloween. I'm going to try it with just a headset mic, as the other mics apparently sounds like I'm crackling all the time. But part 4. And there was a lot of films that I watched in part 4 because I had to make up for the extra days. So first of all, Alexander Aja's film Crawl came out last year, and basic premise is I think it's Soldario. She is in Maze Runner and the last Pirates of the Caribbean movie. She goes to try to rescue her dad as a hurricane is flooding his town, and he's trapped in a basement. But there are also crocodiles inside, and so they're trapped in a house in the dark, in the water, with crocodiles. People trying to save them. Crocodiles also come. Surprise! This is, if you know who this guy is, he did a remake of The Hills Have Eyes and so on. You should not be surprised that this film was not for the faint of heart. And if you have a queasy stomach, you should probably not watch it. But other than that, it's pretty darn good. It's well made, well crafted, and if you can handle the gore, you can handle the movie. Pretty solid one. Next, this is a classic that I should have seen a long time ago. It was directed by Tobe Hooper, but it's really directed by Steven Spielberg, and I understand why people have said that for years. I'm talking about Poltergeist, which, of course, the original Poltergeist came out in the 80s, and I can understand now why people say it's directed by Spielberg, because it feels like a Spielberg movie, not a Tobe Hooper movie. This film it's great, if not fantastic. I can see it's aged not perfectly. I can see why they'd want to remake it, but I've heard the remake is terrible, so I haven't watched it. But it's really good, and I can see how it's such a great and influential movie. Not the best movie on my list, but a pretty good one. This next one, 30 Days of Night. This is a film that I grew up in Alaska, and we like to mock this movie. I had not seen it, but I knew all about it because it's supposed to take place in Burrow, but the film says Burrow's a town of 500. It's actually a town of like 6,000. There's no flights in the dark time. There are flights in the dark time. You can't buy alcohol in the dark time. We can't buy alcohol at any time. Single pane windows, stuff like it was actually dark for 30 days. No, it's not quite dark for 30 days. It does get twilight. The sun just doesn't come up, or if it does, you barely see it on the horizon. Beyond the Alaska accuracy stuff, the movie's decent. I'm just wondering why they had someone like Houston in there just to be a villain, and all he does is go the entire time. I don't know why you'd get a good actor just to make weird noises. But the movie itself is fine, if not good. It's filmed well, looks pretty good. Time crunch kind of weird, because if it's supposed to be 30 days, it feels like 2. But it's based on a comic book. And it's certainly better than its sequel, which was Dark Days, which I also saw, which basically takes those people who, the main person who survived the first attack, and then other people who survived it, and they're in LA, and they're trying to hunt the vampire queen. I know it's based on a comic book. I know it's based on a comic book sequel. It just does not work as well in that way, really at all. This next one. Okay, this one's been recommended to me for a while. It stars Christopher Plummer, Gerard Butler, Omar Epps. It's Dracula 2000, or Wes Craven Presents Dracula 2000. Gerard Butler, before Phantom of the Opera and 300, sucked. He sucks in this movie. And he's terrible. Christopher Plummer doesn't really do much in this movie, and this movie had a lot of potential. I like the idea of having Dracula in this time. I even like the conceit of who Dracula actually is. But the tone of this movie is all over the place. It's really weird. They're like trying to make it like Blade, but instead they went Blade Trinity, but made it even more wacky without people who could actually do it. And it's just all over the place and kind of odd, and I don't think it earned it, and somehow got 2 sequels. I don't know how. This movie is not very good, not really good at all. The concept is fine. The actors are fine. Like the choice of actors for the most part are fine, other than Gerard Butler. But picking Gerard Butler as Dracula is worse than who they picked in Blade Trinity, and Blade Trinity is one of the weakest parts of that movie. So, not very good movie, and I don't really want to see the sequels at all. Next one. This is a one that my wife said I had to see. I haven't seen. I don't know why I hadn't seen it over the years. It's certainly not necessarily by choice. I just don't know why. But Hocus Pocus, I'd never seen it. I know it's a family-based one. I know it's one that my wife loves and my kids love. I was not the biggest fan of it. I understand why people are huge fans of it. I understand why people would want to see it. I'm not a big fan of stuff like Sabrina the Teenage Witch or Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Charmed or Halloween Town or anything like that. So this movie didn't really appeal to me. I do love the song though, "Come Little Children." I can see why people liked it. It just doesn't appeal to me. I know people are really looking forward to the sequel. I hope it does good for them. It's just not really my thing. Okay, next one. 2 werewolf movies. One's an older one, I believe it's from the early 90s, called Ginger Snaps. It's a female-led werewolf movie that this one hasn't aged very well. I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't really like werewolves in the 90s at all anyway, unless it was something like The Wolfman. It wasn't until Underworld that I actually started caring about werewolves, or lichens, I guess they're in there. So, but I did hear that there was a male version of this one that came out in 2014, directed by David Hayter, who is the writer for the X-Men movies. He's also the voice actor for Solid Snake and Metal Gear Solid. So I was like, oh, let's see how he did. And it stars Lucas Till, and it has Jason Momoa. This movie is very much a mixed bag. The first 20 minutes is rough. Rough. Not even like a dog bark. Like it's a voiced over most of the time. I don't really like that as a movie. It happens a lot. And it kind of settles into something like, say, Twilight meets Sons of Anarchy, R-rated. Lucas Till does fine. The female lead actually does pretty good, and they're both an attractive couple. Jason Momoa was not really his likable self. He's more like he is in Conan, where he's not the most likable person. Not the greatest. The story itself is fine until the very, very end, kind of weird twist, which did not feel earned and felt kind of insulting. The makeup is where I'm kind of confused, because the makeup for the werewolves in this movie looks something like a mix between Beast in X-Men and Hermione as a cat in Harry Potter. I don't think it really worked as well as they thought it was going to. I don't think it really worked that well at all. Next one, Haunted Mansion, which Disney movie based on the attraction at Disneyland, starring Eddie Murphy. He's a real estate agent and gets brought into this house to try to sell it with his family because his wife looks like the former lover of one of the ghosts there. It's a supernatural love story, not particularly done very well. Crimson Peak and someone did it so much better. I think they could have done this one far simpler and to greater effect. I think a simpler approach would have made it a better movie. I think Eddie Murphy didn't quite fit this story very well. Either they had to make it scarier and simpler, or more manic, and it's not really either. It's okay. It's like, see once a year type thing, but it's not anything particularly good about it. They just want to show a lot of the Haunted Mansion, and not really in a good way. Last but not least, this one has been on my list to see for a bit because I've been told it was fantastic. In fact, one of my friends said it was his favorite movie of last year. I'm talking about Jordan Peele's movie starring Lupita Nyong'o and Winston Duke and Elizabeth Moss. Us came out last year, and this movie is fantastic. It has a lot to say about society, has a lot to say politically, so to speak. But Lupita Nyong'o is really, really, really good. Winston Duke is solid, but Lupita Nyong'o is the superstar of this movie. And I don't really want to spoil what happens, but what she pulls off is fantastic, and it is terrifying, and in the way that gets you wanted to talk about it. Not really graphic movie, but it's terrifying in many ways that is a whole lot smarter than what most people will do, and I think I definitely saved the best for last, and this movie was great. Definitely recommend it. It's definitely the best of the movies that I've seen this entire 31 days, so thank you everyone who's been recommending me movies to see, and don't worry, there's plenty more movies for me to watch out there. I'm just going to take a little break from horror for a little bit, because now it's November, National Writing Month, and I'm going to get some writing done, so thank you so much, and if you have any comments, leave them down in the chat.